Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm going to be in conversations with very, very eminent folks from industry, folks who represent the technology side of the NBFC and the asset management sectors within the Indian BFSI industry as a whole. This segment is particularly going to be a 30-minute long segment where we're going to hear about, from these eminent folks, hear about developments and the evolution of technology in accelerating value in the NBFC sector. And without further ado, please put your hands together to welcome, in no specific order, Mr. Shishupal Rathore, Senior Vice President for New Technologies at Motilal S. Oswal Financial Services. Mr. Rathore, welcome, sir, and delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm quite honored to be here as well. Thank you.
Mr. Rahul Dayal, Chief Technology Officer at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Funds. Rahul, welcome, delighted.
Thank you, Arjun. Pleasure being here.
And last but certainly not the least, Shubhajit Roy is a technology advisor today and was the ex-CIO for SBI Mutual Funds. Mr. Roy, welcome, sir. We're equally delighted and privileged you could make it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to an insightful discussion.
Absolutely, and likewise.
Industry colleagues and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I intend to make the most of the next 30 minutes. Mr. Rathore, I'd directly like to come to you. With your permission, of course, which is that if you had to look at the last 24 months from the lens of the learnings, the challenges, and yet the opportunities that have presented themselves as perhaps a natural fallout of the pandemic, which forced us to adopt technology in different measures. How do you, in your perspective today, view the modernization of this particular sector as has transpired over the last 24 months?
An interesting question, Arjun. So I would say basically, that while someone would have thought of that the transformation may be required, it mandated the last 24 months, has mandated that it is required, there's no option. And if we have to do it, we have to do it right, because that's how, that's how this entire industry, that's how, the entire business is shaping up now. So if you really ask me that, basically, we have to go back to our boardrooms, discuss basically what all is needed. And by God's sake, basically, we had started on this journey quite before this pandemic. And we had the overall journeys to a great extent discussed and, to an extent already designed and implemented. So that helped us, in catering to our customers. And we have seen basically how the last 24 months has been. People had ample time being at home, quite scared, but basically at home. With all the digital tools at their disposal. And we saw a quite surge both from an AMC perspective as well as from an equity, overall trading perspective. We have seen, huge surge in not only the customer base, but the amount of trading and the amount of investment that people have done in the last 24 months. So I see that has been an interesting journey, while, it has been a scary 24 months, but at the same time, quite positive from financial organization perspective. And this has led, to a next wave of transformation that we're looking for now. So any specific would you like to know about basically? So
I said, I liked what you said, and I did catch on to one particular point that I want to bring to you, Rahul, with your permission, is that it is true, isn't it, that a lot of these modernization journeys, both in terms of business processes, operating models, and obviously foundationally technology, had kind of started much before. But the last 2 years, it's only been accelerated because of the need for resilience and business continuity that has been very widely felt. What's your perspective on that?
Sure. So if you look at other industries, like let's take an example outside of BFSI or NBFCs and NBFCs. Let's look at, mobile phones. Let's look at WhatsApp. Let's look at things like, even to the extent of saying YouTube and so on. It's gone down to the common man. If you go to, let's say, even the villages, or let's take an example of even our help. And so everybody is using mobile phones. They're using WhatsApp and so on. So they are already now used to some new technologies, the new age solutions that are available. And that was bound to trickle down to let's say, the AMCs and the NBFCs. The idea being, most of the organizations were already on that journey. The journey had already begun. People had recognized that these technologies are here to stay. People will want a lot more ease of transaction, ease of service, and that was bound to happen. But what really, as we all know, COVID has kind of exponentially changed the rate at which we were looking at, this modernization. So that's typically what happened. If I were to give you a particular example, it's not only about, let's say, investors or customers. It's also about distributors. It's also about employees. How do you get your employees to use new technologies to make it easier for them? Work from home has become now a standard. There are a lot, especially if I were to look at the technology field, most developers, most tech folks are happier to work from home, happier to work from remote locations. So unless that transformation completely runs through, it's very difficult for such things to happen. So organizations have realized that, and all of them are on that journey or already got there. Most are already there, but if not, they're on that journey to get complete modernization.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, because Mr. Roy, if I could come to you, and if you were to look at the overall ecosystem of the sector, the banking, the financial services, and the insurance sector as a whole, do you get the feeling that, in a sense, the pandemic, the disruption that it caused, and therefore the accelerated the adoption of technology has helped the sector manage to bring in more into the fiscal fold, more of the unbanked into the fiscal fold? Do you feel that the digital acquisition, which was necessary because of a lack of physical contact, has only been accelerated in such fashion that it's, in a perverse fashion, just worked out very well in terms of bringing in more into the fiscal fold?
Yeah, so as you have mentioned, so this kind of transformation we are seeing in the BFSI space in India is not happened in post or at the start of pandemic, which were more visible to say, but actually this must have started maybe almost around 8 to 10 years back, but pace was not that dramatic or rapid. So one is that pace has dramatically changed post 2020. So that is one significant, and visibility has become more and more prominent. But this journey has started a few years back, and there are two aspects. One is what companies are doing, and the incumbent banks, financial institutions, mutual funds, and also there is a lot of big techs or fintechs of late coming into play. So there is a lot of interplay between that two. There are threats, there are competition, there are threat to existence. So that is one side of the story. So as Shishupal said, Rahul said, there is no choice today. It's not a luxury. It's a must-have kind of situation. Digital transformation, business transformation through. So that is one. Second side, I just want to highlight this. We are talking about financial sector, which is totally different from other sector. So a lot of people post-pandemic had realized the importance of savings, financial planning, future retirement planning, and insurance, because it was a black swan event. So it was totally unpredictable. So a lot of people, because of various factors, come into the capital markets, equity market for investment purpose, as well as for the future financial planning purpose. So they were also equating that with the Rahul said, with the advent of mobile technology, with the big techs, how they are servicing, like WhatsApp, Facebook, Amazon. So these two interplays are really very, very interesting landscape.
Very, very true. And you spoke about fintechs, and so have both the other eminent gentlemen, because Mr. Rathod, if I could ask you, when you look at the fintech ecosystem developing as it has over the last 2-3 odd years, do you see a natural convergence with your sector in being able to therefore leverage a combination of capabilities at both ends to bring out newer product offerings, reinforce digital business operations, perhaps higher productivity, but radically transform your operations today in this sector to a higher degree of efficiencies as well as personalization and innovation?
No doubt about it. Actually, we are quite gung-ho on this. So if you really ask me, the traditional ways of acquiring customers basically was, through our salespeople, through advertisements and all that has changed. It's completely digital today. So we are, most of the leads that we are getting now is through our Google or Facebook or Insta. Okay. Similarly, basically, if you really lead generation or customer acquisition is one of the most critical and an expensive process in the overall journey, and that has been completely, taken over by this integration with these big techs. Now, if I come to basically the next part, a lot of innovative products are coming up. Okay, so if you really ask me, basically, if I have to go with not only the traditional ones, even if I want to go with the new gen if you really see 30% or 50% of the crypto buyers today or crypto customers today are below the age of 40. Okay, and these are the people who are going to be either going to be our customers today or they are going to be our customers tomorrow. So basically, you can only, and we don't have a solution for cryptos today. So the best way is, to get connected with a lot of fintechs that are not only offering a lot of innovative products, not only from a digital acquisition perspective, but only from a new product perspective, and then from a process optimization perspective. So, I could not imagine, that if we did not have an eKYC in place before the pandemic, we would have been able to serve to so many customers.
So true. So true.
Okay. So basically, we see a convergence of fintechs collaborating with an organization like us at every aspect of the journey. Okay, right from customer acquisition to customer onboarding to customer servicing, and then taking feedback and creating a new product. So I see, an ecosystem being developed where basically every organization, every fintech, every organization, big organization like us have a role to play, and role to play not only from serving the customer but also on co-creating products. So I see it, as a big opportunity in the ecosystem.
Rahul, bringing that to you, in this overall space of mutual funds in the non-banking financial ecosystem, is a very regulated, yet it is also very niche in terms of the products and the services that it offers to a wide swath of customers. And in this, I'm sure you agree, the data plays a huge role in your being able to identify and unlock the opportunities that present themselves. But my question to you really is, do you feel that we are leveraging the data adequately enough? Do we even know whether the data that we have, whether it's correct, whether it's adequate or not? What's your view on the whole concept of data playing a role in this?
So data and data will play a huge role. See, I'm a huge believer in data. I think at the moment, and this is an example I give quite often. If you look at, and I keep giving examples from other industries so that we can relate how that functions in NBFCs or AMCs. Let's take an example of fintech doing food or food delivery and so on, right? And they will send out an alert or a campaign or a offer at the time when the customer is most likely to consume that service. So, for example, I mean, not taking exact names, but let's say a Swiggy or a Zomato and so on and so forth. We'll probably look at, a particular customer, look how the customer behaves. Is he likely to order lunch at work? Is he likely to order dinner at home because he doesn't have time to cook? Or is he likely to have a good party on the weekend and order at that point in time? What kind of customer is he? And that's when roll out the offers, right? Now, all that's happening through a lot of data, right? They look at the data, they relook at it and so on. Whereas traditionally, if you look at, financial services on the whole, they just push, common, campaigns to everyone. It's just a one size fits all. So that is certainly going to change once a lot more data massaging happens, a lot more data that is being used. We'll surely see a lot more of that. We'll be able to send, targeted offers to people when they really need it. And, those kind of services will start coming in once that data is used completely. We also are looking at a lot more of,
I think we've lost him there for a second.
Yeah. So do you want me to pitch in?
No, that's perfectly okay. Mr. Roy, if you can pitch in and continue this conversation ahead. The role of data, of course, according to you, and really, are we doing enough with the data or are we just scratching the surface? You're on mute, Mr. Roy.
Yeah, sorry. So there is no doubt what Rahul has said just now. So data is the de facto, today is the de facto tool at the hand of everybody at the organization level, at the individual level, okay? So there is no doubt on that. So now, as you said, most of us, majority of our companies in the, I think, first or second leg of data journey, because it's quite a long journey. Most of the companies, if you look at, we may have started this journey maybe 4 to 5 years back. So there are a lot of paths to be covered. And but there are a lot of functions, that where we can really play critical role in terms of leveraging the data to provide meaningful business insights. So mostly in mutual fund sector or in securities or broking sector or NBFCs, most of are witnessing sales-led growth or sales-focused strategy. So obviously all the companies have some strategy in place and which is backed by some action and which is backed by data. So we started with the sales-led growth strategy where data is playing a key role, as you said, but in a very nascent stage. We are still in the first stage. And now it is going to the more finer or more niche stage where hyper-personalized customer journey is being captured, segmentation is being done, and various nudges are being provided to the teams for the RMs who are managing distributors or who are managing direct customers or risk management, investment, all functions are being provided data and a lot of insights to data. So that is happening in a very, but scenario is changing. Most of the mutual funds, even if they started the journey 4 or 5 years back, but now the scenario is changing. And most of the efforts are backed by data. And that's why you see a lot of companies have exponentially grown through sales-led approach, which is backed by data.
Oh, very interesting. Mr. Rathore, your view on this, please? Are we doing
Sorry,
enough?
I
data
kind of
for
lost.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes, we did lose you, Rahul.
Unfortunately, yeah. So I'm not really sure on the context where I got dropped off and the question that you asked.
We were continuing to debate the whole concept around, we obviously know that data is very critical, which you did certainly articulate very, very powerfully. But my supplementary question also was that, are we doing enough really? Are we doing justice to the data that we have? I think that's where we kind of lost you.
Right. It's fair. I think there is tons of data. And at the moment, I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to be done there. We have so much of social data, real-time feeds that can come through. While the customers are transacting or investors are transacting, is there ways to get in real-time feeds which can then, process it and give them better nudges or, help them do their transactions and so on. So those kind of things are happening, and data is an ever-evolving field. So,
of course.
Yeah. So, as we go along, we'll see a lot more of data happening in this industry, and that's across the industry, not just for NBFCs or AMCs.
Yeah, true. Mr. Rathore, your view on this, please? Do you agree that we're just scratching the tip?
This is my, favorite subject, data. Basically, the only thing that I would say, that I was just reading a study and it said that every year or every day, basically, we are generating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. And the amount of data that we have, generated in the last 2 years, it has just doubled. And they are saying that now every 2 years we'll be doubling the amount of data that is being generated in this whole world. So if you ask me that, are we doing enough? We are not even 1% of, what we should be doing. But that is also a lot of noise. Okay. So we also have to be, very wise in understanding where to differentiate between the noise and the data that we really need. So that's where it really comes to a point where basically what we really want to do with this data. Okay. So we have regulation on one part, where we really, we have to also respect the privacy of our users or the customers. But at the same point in time, there is data available that could help us, as Mr. Roy was talking about, really creating those hyper-personalized models that could help customers, take the right decision with the products that we're trying to offer. So I think there is a huge opportunity that lies there, from a data exploitation or data usage perspectives. And at the same point in time, a huge opportunity also lies using that data and creating the products that the customers need. So
very, very true. No, that's actually very, very interesting because I have a view on the clock, and I think we've fairly established the fact that the modernization that the industry has seen with the help of technology, of course, is a fact that has been established, and that evolution or the journey evolution will only continue at accelerated and more mature speeds and scales. We've also established the potency really of data being foundational to again, the evolving maturity of the sector. My question to you, therefore, is when you kind of piece it all together and you also look at the whole digitalization journey, and Rahul, I come to you and then we'll go around in a round robin fashion. How can asset management firms in this particular sector orchestrate dramatic improvements in areas like distribution efficiency across multiple metrics with the aid of technology, Rahul? And what is your prescriptive guidance? And that's important. What is your prescriptive guidance to existing as well as a new emerging generation of new IT folks and IT leaders who will carry this patent forward in the years to come?
Right. So when we are talking about distribution, let me take the example of COVID again. During the COVID time, a lot of these our distributors, our partners were not tech savvy. They didn't have a great tech stack. There were a lot of people who met in person with their customers and kind of filled forms together, helped them fill the forms, and then manually transacted with us. Right. So I think they were the ones who faced the biggest challenge because they couldn't really carry on business anymore and they needed a lot of assistance. At that point in time, what we went out and did was created something called smart links, where these distributors could simply on a simple form just fill in the details of their customers and send a link to them, and the customers could carry out only the payment process and the transaction went. Similarly, we did things like co-browsing, where it's like filling the form together with the with the investors, and those such kind of things were a huge hit. The other pieces are around WhatsApp. So using WhatsApp for at least servicing customers, through distributors. So even distributors could use a WhatsApp channel to service those kind of things. We saw a huge uptake. We saw huge advantages to the distributors themselves, and I think that will play a critical role going forward. Distributors are very important to our business. They are the guys who advise a lot of the customers. Customers are investors. The investors have a lot of belief in some of the distributors, and that's the very reason that we need to enable our distributors to do a lot better and a lot more technology if they're not tech savvy. Of course, we have distributors who are very, very tech savvy. They have their own tech stack, they have their own development teams and so on. But there are lots of others who need handholding and need to be given the support like we would have done it in the traditional days.
No, very, very true. Mr. Roy, I bring that to you again. In the evolved role that you have seen technology play over the years, and as you sit today in March of 2022, when you peer into the future, what is the journey or the trajectory that you see the sector take with the aid and enablement of technology? And what do you see, where do you see some very radical shifts? What should future CIOs and CTOs be prepared for?
Yeah, so if I'll take up your first question about the IT leaders or CIOs folks in this space. So I think it requires a radical shift, the way we are working for last many years. So that is not sufficient to deliver in today's context. Because one side, industry is changing very fast, technology is changing very fast. And on top of that, investors, customers, distributors, expectations are changing rapidly because they are comparing with the commodities marketplace, like e-commerce, social media. So their expectation is similar to that, which, yeah, there are obviously difference between those and that because trust factor is totally different, but they are with the efficiency, ease of access, product variations, they are expecting something like that so that it is good for financial inclusion. And other side, you have the regulators. And there's also, as Rahul said, there's a dichotomy, not dichotomy, some challenging parallel. You have to cater to the distributors as well as you have to cater to the tech savvy, digitally savvy, individual retail investors. Today, most of the millennials or young people, they are not going to the distributors. So they want to do themselves the investment. So you have to enable them through various channels. So all put together, so CIO's role has dramatically changed and it's a huge burden. And on top of that, security, data privacy security. Yeah, so that is nothing mentioned. So it's a really, you have to be at top of the league.
You have to be at top of your game.
In terms of you have to be technology top as well as business, because most of the time most of the focus was on technology side, technology stack. And so we never took too much interest in business. Today, if you look at the CIOs, they are really business savvy, they understand. So, and there's the equation of that alignment equation. So these are really difficult times, but it is not interesting times because you can do a lot of things today if you are in a good position as a CIO or IT leader, you have a lot of tools. And if you are a lot of leadership quality and vision, and the company is in a path of innovation, you can achieve a lot, but it is a long haul, long journey. So you require, and also at the back of it, you require a good team and support from your people, workforce, and that workforce is again becoming a very, very key challenge for most of the companies today.
Thank you. Mr. Rathore, I ask you the same question, but in a slightly more considered fashion, now that I have the benefit of having heard Rahul and Mr. Roy's articulation in supreme passion, which is that the sector by itself, over the years, there will be further regulation, there'll be opening up of certain areas, and therefore that the sector by itself will look at lots of challenges and yet lots of opportunities. Side by side or in parallel is the journey of technology, which will enable so much for you to be able to do in such more significant measure. For example, security will certainly continue to be a challenge, but technology will also give you the opportunity. As these two parallel stories continue to chug along, how do you converge them to be able to harness the best possible that you can for the sector, for organizations as CIOs and CTOs?
So if you really ask me from a digital perspective, that's where probably if you have seen, our strategy is digital. So it is physical plus digital. Okay. So as Rahul was mentioning, basically we have distributors who are a core part of our business, from serving customers, from bringing customers. But at the same point in time, the millennials, as Mr. Roy was mentioning, they want to, go directly and buy the products. So basically, while it used to be B2B business model, now it's a combination of B2B and B2C. And you have two sets of customers. We are here to serve the entire spectrum of customers, basically, right from 18 to 60, in the NBFCs and AMCs. And if you really see at the prediction or the forecast, this industry is going to grow at a CAGR rate of 15%. Okay, and today 25 trillion rupees of asset under management is owned by this overall industry. So if we really have to keep that pace, we have to have a strategy that caters to both types of customers, both types of partners, basically both from retail perspective and from distribution perspective. And now even the distribution, even our distribution channels or distribution partners, are looking for digital offerings or digital products which they could use to cater to the customer. So basically our need is now basically not only supporting our direct customers, but also supporting our distribution partners basically with digital channels basically, which they could use to support the customers. So basically the need has grown basically. Everybody is quite optimistic and sees a lot of opportunities in the market. And I think the only way is to continue with the digital journey and rather accelerate it to the next level.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I do have a view on the clock. We're pretty much bang on the time that we had agreed to, but we still got a couple of minutes. And as a moderator, as an analyst, I've always been slightly greedy. Rahul, if I could come to you, if the last 2 years have obviously taught us all so much, both in our professional as well as in our personal capacities, to understand the man behind the technology, the man behind the success. One particular learning that you felt that you picked up over the last 24 months that you feel is going to stick with you for a long, long time to come? Could be personal, it could be professional.
Well, for me, I think the key thing is that, things are very unpredictable.
Of course.
Like no one expected, like Subhajit was saying that, it's been a totally black swan event. No one expected to be locked within doors, for 3 and 4 months together. So I think the key thing is that it's not only work, you need to balance things, and that's what people have started doing. People have started, like I was mentioning earlier, people prefer working from home for that reason and so on. So I think being prepared and being prepared doesn't mean only on this front. It also means whether it's financially. A lot of people have got their financial acts together because of this whole journey and so on. So I think being prepared is a key thing.
Is the mantra.
Exactly. Yes.
Mr. Roy, anything that you wish to share with us and this wonderful audience that's tuning in with us today?
Yeah, so I have I think one thing I have learned during this thing. So how to become self-reliant. So it is applicable in professional as well as personal.
Right.
So I have really, to be very honest, which I did not put so much effort to become so much reliant at home, at professionally. So starting from cooking, So and doing so skill development now is you have to focus on skill development. So nothing is like impossible. A lot of time we had a lot of mindset inhibitions. So like today I have learned that if you think of some skill development and try to become self-reliant and don't depend on others. So that gives you a joy and a lot of flexibility in your life.
Very true. Couldn't agree more. And Mr. Rathod, in conclusion, anything that you'd like to share with us?
Two things that I would like to share. One is, that hope prevails over all skepticism. Okay. So we have seen that so much in the last 2 years, right? And the second is that, there is always an opportunity in every calamity. So, whoever, saw that opportunity in the calamity basically have, really grown their business almost 100% in the last 2 years. So there is always an opportunity in every calamity, and we always have to be optimistic is what, I have learned in the last 2 years.
Couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Rathod, but gentlemen, this has been nothing short of delightful as a conversation. I'm personally very grateful, and I'm sure the audience stands much the better, having heard each of you articulate your views in such supreme measure. Rahul, Mr. Roy, Shishupal, thank you so very much from all of us at Strategy. Thank you
very much for having us here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arjun. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Roy.
you. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's all from us in this segment. Stay tuned. We'll be back with you in a moment.